Hello and welcome to an INT Online Tally Campbell Report special presentation. I'm Christopher Munsmicklin in Victoria.
And I'm Tally Campbell in Nanaimo.
And on this special presentation, we're going to be taking a look back on the life, legacy, and media coverage of former NDP leader Jack Layton. On August 22, 2011, Jack Layton, the leader of the federal NDP party, passed away. Now, of all our current political leaders, there is no doubt that Jack Layton was by far the most popular. In fact, in one political campaign, Jack Layton was voted most likely as the guy you would just sit down and have a beer with. Now, the public's reaction and the media's reaction has been nothing short of astounding. The media reaction rivals such stories as the trapped Chilean miners or the royal wedding, and I'll have more on the media reaction a little bit later on in this program. But for now, let's go over to Tally Campbell, who's standing by in Nanaimo, who reports on the life and legacy of a man who brought the NDP their biggest success ever.
Thanks, Chris. Jack Layton was a Canadian social-democratic politician and the leader of the official opposition leader of the New Democratic Party from 2003 until his recent death in 2011. And previously sat on City Council of Toronto. The son of a progressive conservative cabinet minister, Layton was raised in Hudson, Quebec. He rose to prominence in Toronto municipal politics, where he was one of the most prominent left-wing voices in the City of Toronto councils. And he was also a board member for the Toronto Port Authority. In 1991, he ran for mayor but lost to June Rowlands. Remaining on council, he rose to become the head of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. In 2003, he was elected head of the NDP on the first ballot of the convention. Under his leadership, the New Democratic Party considerably increased their support, almost doubling the party's popular vote in 2004 election. Though vote splitting with the Liberals limited their gain in seats, Layton's NDP held balance of power in Paul Martin's minority government, where in May of 2005, the NDP supported the Liberal budget in exchange for the major amendments, in what was promoted as Canada's first NDP budget. In November of that year, Layton worked with other opposition parties in bringing down the Liberal government over the findings of the Gomery Commission. The NDP saw further gains in the 2006 and 2008 elections, in which the party won more seats than it had since its 1988 peak. The NDP tally of 37 MPs under Layton into the 2008 election was just 6 seats short of the party's previous all-time high. In the 2011 election, Layton led the NDP to an historic total of 103 seats. The success of the NDP in this election was unprecedented, making Layton the most successful leader electronically in the party's history in terms of seats won. And now for more of the media frenzy and the outpour of support that Jack Layton and his family are getting, here's Christopher in Victoria.
Thank you, Tally. Well, as I mentioned in the introduction, Jack Layton was an extremely well-liked politician. I think for most Canadians, even if you didn't agree with the man's policies, you had to at least like the man himself. Jack Layton reminded me most of a jolly elf. Even when he was engaged in heated arguments in the House of Commons, he still seemed to have this little twinkle in his eye. And the fact that he was able to connect with millions of Canadians across the country, I do not find surprising. Now, Jack Layton passed away on a Monday. His funeral was not held until Saturday. And in that week-long period between his passing and his funeral, Jack Layton dominated the news cycle in this country.
Stevens shares a remarkable outpouring of support for the popular politician who called Toronto home.
Toronto is remembering Jack Layton this weekend. The state funeral for the man who changed the political landscape in our country takes place tomorrow.
Layton today. It's a city where he started his political career and fought many battles. A state funeral will be held for the NDP leader tomorrow.
Final respects to Jack Layton. Mourners have waited hours for the chance to file past his casket as preparations continue for tomorrow's funeral service.
What do you think the message is for other politicians who must be looking at this outpouring of grief and trying to figure out what it all means?
Layton's body lay in repose at City Hall a day before his state funeral.
Literally every aspect of this story, from the hundreds of mourners gathered to pay their respects, to the history of Jack Layton, to even his grieving family, was covered and splashed out across television screens across Canada. Now, internationally, this story did not receive a lot of coverage. That's not surprising. The passing of a Canadian opposition leader isn't really newsworthy outside of this country, but here at home, the coverage was on par with media spectacles such as the trapped Chilean miners in 2010, or the balloon boy debacle in the United States. I would even say that it was on the same level as the royal wedding of William and Kate and the royal tour of William and Kate when they came to Canada just a few months ago. On Monday, when most of the nation was still sort of in shock over the passing of Jack Layton, Mark Kelly of the CBC devoted nearly his entire one-hour program to the Jack Layton story. And across the country, the story snowballed, preempting important stories such as the massacre in Syria and the fall of Tripoli in Libya. I have to tell you that by the time the Friday news hours rolled around, I was personally getting a little bit tired of the Jack Layton story. Yet even then I was shocked that upon watching CP24, which is a cable news channel out of Toronto, that they considered the mourners at Jack Layton's casket more important than the imminent landfall of Hurricane Irene, expected to cause widespread destruction on the East Coast. Finally, I think that Jack Layton was a good man and a great politician. I think he was deserving of some media coverage, but the level of media coverage that this story received, I think, was overbearing, and I think it was just a little too much on the heavy side. The final thing to consider is what Jack Layton's death means for the NDP party, both in the short term and in the long term. I think this is a really interesting question because, of course, Jack Layton really built the party. He brought it up to becoming the party with official opposition status. He went from from the number 3 party in the House of Commons to a very, very strong number 2 party. And he really did all of that himself. I think if the NDP really wants to maintain its status, they're going to have to find someone with the amount of charisma that Jack Layton had, and I think to do that is going to be extremely challenging for them. Tally?
Exactly. Jack Layton definitely made a stand put for the New Democratic Party. He had 103 seats, like I said previously. He definitely grew that party like no one else ever did. The party's definitely be a lot different without Layton in it, but there are a lot of other strong politicians within the party itself. Like we said, though, the party will never ever be the same. It's sad to see Layton go, and our hearts, our thoughts, our condolences, our prayers all go out to the Layton family and friends and all the NDP supporters. But with that said, this comes to the end of our show. I'm Tally Campbell in Nanaimo and Christopher Victoria. This is an INT Online Tally Campbell Report special. Thanks for watching.